Hello, my name is Simon, and today we're going to be doing the ACT Practice Test 3, Section 3, numbers 21 through 30. So getting started right away with passage 3 here. If you haven't read it, pause this video and go do so right now. So after reading passages, I like to take, a few seconds, half a minute, to kind of let it simmer. Think about what the general thought, the general idea of the passage was. So in the case of this passage, it's talking about how the author got introduced to the hobby of identifying flowers and just her experience in doing so. So knowing that, let's go straight to number 21. So the passage is best described as being told from the point of view of someone who is. So given the summary that we just constructed right there. So A, tracing her developing an interest in identifying flowers. So that is similar to what our summary was. However, just to be sure, let's go through B, C, and D. So B, re-examining the event that led to her lifelong fascination with asters. Asters are only mentioned at the very beginning, so it's very unlikely that's B. As for C, reviewing relationships with people, only two people mentioned in this, Julie and the young man at the very beginning, so unlikely as well. Then D, describing how her hobby of identifying flowers became a profitable career. Nowhere does she really mention profit. So answer must be A. Now going to 22, as portrayed by the author, the young man responded to her question about the flower with what is best described as. So we can see the young man's reaction from lines 6 through 9. We mainly get two hints. Oh, just an aster. And 2, was there a hint of a sniff as he turned away? So using these two hints, let's try the answer to the question. So F, acceptance. From hint 2, we can see that, the young man had a bit of an attitude to him. It was as if he was, a little bit cocky, like, oh, you just bothered me. You bother me just so I can, look an aster. It's kind of like that of an attitude. So acceptance doesn't seem right. Surprise doesn't seem that right as well, given these hints. H, condescension. That seems pretty accurate given these two hints. Or just be sure, let's look at J, anger. Nowhere is the young man really angry, so J can't be it. So our answer here, must be H. So 23, what name, if any, does the author report assigning to the yellow flower she came across during a mountain hike? So for these type of questions, best thing to do is look at the answers given and try to find those in the passage. If it's not in the passage, it's not your answer. So luckily for us, all three of these words can be found in line 50. In this sentence, as the gnats descended, I noticed that there were 6 more pages ahead, each packed with 5-petaled yellow flowers, St. Johnsworth, loosestrife, puccoons. Then the author goes on to mention, talk about how crowded the pages were in the book and her experience with the guide. So, completely different topic. So from this alone, we can tell that author doesn't really come to in a conclusion about the yellow flowers and just kind of moves on. So our answer must be D. So number 24, looking back at her early experiences with the Petersons, the author most strongly implies that the guide was. So we can get the general gist of the author's experience with the guidebook through lines 38 through 66. So just to give you a bit of a summary, the author talks about how stubborn the guidebook was and just how stubborn she was as well, and how she had to kind of fight with the book in order to really get into the hobby of identifying flowers. So with this in mind, let's look at F, daunting at first, but in retrospect preferable. So that is what we're looking for. Just to be sure, let's look at G, H, and J. Easy to use in the beginning. Not right. She said it was hard to use at the beginning. H, impossible for her to follow until she started pairing up with a different guide. Never used a different guide. J, appealing initially until she realized how poorly illustrated the crowded pages were. She does mention how crowded the pages were, but not really in a negative connotation, so probably not J as well. So answer is most likely, and it is F. Now for number 25, as it is used in line 56, the phrase get in most nearly means, let's go to line 56, and it's in the sentence, and I had no choice really, not if I wanted to get in. So just to give this, some context, she was mentioning how the book was stubborn, how she was stubborn, how she had to fight it in order to really enter the hobby. So with that in mind, let's look at our choices here. A, arrive at a physical location. No location was mentioned. B, chosen for group membership. No group was mentioned. C, truly understand the subject. That could be right. Let's check D. Be friendly with someone. No, there's really no one it was talking about. So C must be our answer here. Now, 26. The passage best supports which of the following conclusions about Julie? So Julie is the author's friend, which is mentioned only here at the very end, right here, which I just scribbled over. And the sentence really only goes, my friend Julie and I identified individual plants in our rambles, but from the particulars we began to know wholes. So, knowing that, let's go to 26. So F, she has more experience than the author. Not supported by the passage, not necessarily true. G, she owns a house. No, that wasn't really said by the passage. H, she sees value in understanding the various communities of plants. That can be true. And that seems generally supported by the passage. They identify plants together, and that's not really a hobby that everyone partakes in. So H seems likely. Let's check J to be sure. She stopped using the Petersons as her primary source of flower information. Nowhere does she mention that she even used the Petersons. So answer here must be H. Now 27. The author states that the Petersons became her closest companion over a period of several. So if we skim through the passage, we can see at line 25 mentions right here over the next several years. So the passage directly says years, so our answer here must be D, years. Pretty easy one there. So number 28, in the context of the passage, the author's statement in lines 56 through 58 most nearly mean that she, so if we go through 56 through 58, she talks about how, looking at landscape is nice, but she wants to learn more about the specifics within that landscape. The plants, particular plants, and how in her guidebook helped her do so. So knowing this, let's look at the answers. F, learn to understand landscapes by looking at their overall patterns. That's opposite of what we just said. G, found the landscapes lost their appeal the more she tried to understand them. That's not true at all. H, hoped to paint attractive portraits. Kind of true, but the author doesn't really want to paint. She just wants to, expand her knowledge. So, not true. J, saw a deeper knowledge of landscapes for learning about the individual parts. That's what we're looking for. Now, number 29, the details in lines 64 through 66 primarily serve to suggest that, or suggest the. And if we go to 64 through 66, it basically talks about how the book changed. The guidebook. Its cover became stained by food and water. The spine became loose. The margins had strange annotations. It's basically all the markings of a book that's been used a lot throughout the years. Let's look at the answers. A, poor craftsmanship. Not really supported by the passage, even though it could be true. A, transformation of the author's copy as it underwent heavy use. That can be true. Let's just be sure. Check C. Strange writing the author often encountered reading Peterson's. It can explain the annotations, but it doesn't explain the spine or the stains. So, not C. D. Carelessness, with which the author used the Petersons, much to her later regret. Nowhere in this little segment does she really mention any regret or have that, type of connotation. So, not D. So our answer here must be B. Now for our last question, 30. The author refers to Solidago hispida as an example of the flower that she, so this flower was mentioned in line 72. Just to give some context, line 70. If I'd found a flower before, I was happy to see it again. I often addressed it with enthusiasm. Hi there, Solidago hispida. So the flower, Solidago hispida, was an example of a flower that, she encountered again. So knowing that, let's look at F. Had great trouble identifying the first time she stumbled upon it. That can be true, but not supported by the passage. G. Hopes to finally come across on one of her nature walks. So it's an example of flower that she did encounter before. H. Was pleased to encounter again after she learned to identify it. So that's true. What we're looking for, just to be sure, let's look at J. Feels has an inappropriate name given the plant's characteristics. So she doesn't mention the plant's characteristics or really anything but the name of that specific flower. So it's not that. So our answer here must be H. Now, throughout this little segment, this passage, these questions, we used a few methods, which I'd like to briefly go over. So first, when you come across these passages, I highly recommend that you go through, briefly read through. And then afterwards, you spend about half a minute or so, and you just try to summarize the general idea, the thought, the plot of the story, and just jot it down on the side. It'll help you kind of go back through when you're answering the questions. And then as for the questions specifically, process of elimination. It's much easier to choose between 2 answers than 4, so just do your best and just knock off those, 1 or 2 answers that are just really out there. And then finally, and most importantly in my opinion, is try not to overthink it. The answer isn't the one that, might seem the most correct. The answer is the choice that's directly supported by the passage.